I'm here in Stockholm with my two esteemed guests. Robert Sabelström, you are founder and CEO of impact startup ClimateHero. And Emil Pettersen, you are founder and development manager of textile producer Reparell. And we are here to talk about life cycle analysis, or LCA. And you have performed the life cycle analysis on Reparell, showing that your profile clothing, Reparell's, is more than 60% lower compared to the industry average. But let us begin with the basics. Robert, welcome back to our studio.
Thank you. Thank you.
And could you please explain what is a life cycle analysis and why is it important?
So, a life cycle analysis, LCA, means that we map and calculate all emissions that occur during the life cycle stages of a product or a service. Generally, we look at 5 different stages. The first stage is the materials that comes into a product. Think of it as the recipe. So if it's for a shirt, it's basically it's the yarn, it's the buttons and so. If it's for a hamburger, it would be the protein source you put on it, the bun, the tomatoes and so on. If it's for electronic product, it would be the materials and different components coming in. Then the second stage you look at is the production, the value add that a company is doing. So basically all energy being used by the machines, the man hours being able to add some value to the product, internal transports or any waste occurring during the production. And then the third stage is basically the distribution, when the end consumer receives the product at hand. And until then, you mentioned that this is what we call a cradle to gate. Then you have 2 more stages. It's the use stage. So basically when we use the product, if it's an electronic product, it's the electricity you use during the life cycle. If it's a shirt, it's basically what requires to clean it. So it's energy used for the washing machine, for instance. And then the final stage is the end of life. What happens when eventually the product needs to be recycled or energy recovered or worst case end up in a landfill.
And when you then calculated Reparell's life cycle, when you did that analysis, could you just quickly walk us through what were the important steps of doing that?
Sure. So for Reparell's profile clothing, we choose a specific product. It's called a functional unit. And when we were mapping it through these 5 stages, we also compared it with more of a mainstream product. So in the first stage, when you look at what is the material going into the product, Reparell is really avant-garde. They use recycled ocean plastics combined with Tencel, which is a regenerative product. And just comparing that with the mainstream type, where you use normal cotton, has a significant lower climate footprint. It's not zero, of course. It still drives some emissions to collect ocean plastics and make yarn out of it. Then on the second stage, we look at the production. And here you can see a significant difference. The Reparell products are made in factories in Portugal, where you have a large portion of renewable energy. And if you compare that with a mainstream shirt, they are typically made in Asian countries, which has a much higher carbon intensity of all the energy being used. And the second thing that makes a huge difference is that Reparell use the concept of make to order, meaning you only make products based on what your clients have ordered from you. The typical product, a mainstream product, is that you want to utilize economies of scale. So you make a lot of shirts in an Asian country, for instance, meaning that a lot of those shirts being made never make it to the end client, basically. And when you stop here, and then you need to find out to deliver the product as well. In the Reparell case, you have transports going from the locally produced shirt, the factory in Portugal, for instance, going to a client in Germany. That has a much lower carbon footprint, we could prove, compared to when it's made in Asia and it's going through more of a mainstream distribution scheme. And upon receipt, there's actually a 70% lower footprint for a Reparell product compared to a mainstream one. Then when you add on the other two phases, being that you use it and at the end of life, it's a bit more similar. So the total cradle to grave footprint is around 70% lower for a Reparell polo shirt compared to a mainstream one.
That's amazing, and congratulations, Emil, on that achievement. Anything you want to add? Because Robert really went through the main stages of your lower emission production or life cycle analysis, but anything you want to add to what he says? And in comparison to the rest of the textile industry, wherein lies your big innovation, you think?
Nobody can explain the emission stuff better than Robert, so I won't do that. What I will try to explain is that working within the textile industry, it's an industry under tremendous scrutiny and a lot of debates regarding sustainability claims. And very often it's just a matter of claims and feelings, and not seldom it's material based, because people have an idea of one material being better or nicer or cuter than other. What an LCA bring to the market is actually comparable data. I mean, it's a data-driven analysis where you can compare two products and you can put two straight lines under the answer. You don't have to feel or like or anything. And obviously for Reparell, where we have since the beginning had this idea that sustainable also is financial and economically sane. Overproducing is bad business. Over transportation is bad business. If you can cut down on those variables, you actually can have the same revenue, the same margins, while producing less and producing more expensive. But again, from time to time, I end up in discussions with people who knows about textile or claim to know about textile production and sustainability, and then it's really, really nice to have the papers from the LCA and say, well, this is concrete, this we can discuss, and here we can compare whether you like something or not. Well, sorry, can't relate to that.
And what about this being sort of a model for the rest of the industry? And what about the scalability of your methods?
What we are showing with the help of the LCA and what we are also based a lot of our coming work is the fact that things should be produced as local as possible. I mean, for Europe, it should be produced in Europe, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense to produce in Asia for import to Europe. It doesn't make sense to produce in Europe for export to Asia. So I believe that we will show that smaller, or in the future, we'll see smaller, more agile production units using the material locally to serve the local market. And again, using the word local, that doesn't mean the city of Borås or Sjuhäradsbygden. It means the continent. So, and I think that also the big players will see that this is actually good economics. This is actually the right thing to do, because overproducing or spending money on things where you shouldn't, it's basically not good business.
And there's the product that you make the textiles with a lower emission, but there's also another product here, and it's your data, Robert, that you produce. What do you expect then this data to be used for? What's the point of doing an LCA?
To do a life cycle analysis is basically to use a scientific approach and prove that your product or your green claim is true, and backing it up with data and having a third party like us helping you doing it. So it's not something you just dream or want to be true. And even if it's a product that is not typically more climate smart, like the Reparell case, it's still very high value to understand the baseline, because then you can use that data into your product development, because you can do like a what if analysis. What if we would change this part of the process? What if we would use this material for this component? You can see how will that then, when you scale it up, drive down the overall carbon footprint.
And Emil, in your specific case, what will you do with the data?
For us, the data is super important, both for, as I told you, discussions with other people, the political discussions. It's important to have something to prove. It's important for our customers as a part of a CSRD analysis, or as a part of our client's green claim and their total emission. It's also really, really important for us building new business models based on the fact that we see this potential in local production. So if I get a client in Austria or Australia or South America, well, I might do the math and see, can I put the production close to the market instead of putting even more business to the Portuguese factory, because even though it works very well for the European market, it's not necessarily the right thing for the rest of the world. And this is based on the data we got from Robert.
So more data and more transparency and more comparability, and then you can take grounded decisions up and down the value chain, basically. Thank you so much, Robert Sabelström of ClimateHero and Emil Pettersen of Reparell. Thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Climate Hub European studio. I'm Ingmar Ensog, founder and CEO of We Don't Have Time, and I have interesting guests speaking here in Stockholm that are not able or willing to come to United States. And today we're going to focus on an amazing company and climate solution, Boncalor. And their solution is all about solving the problem with heat in computing. When you have big data centers, and we need a lot of them with the AI arms race and everything, we have a byproduct that is releasing a lot of heat. This is a problem that many in the computer cloud industry try to solve by getting rid of the heat. You have Microsoft that are building data centers in the deep ocean to cool them, etc., etc. But Boncalor have another solution. They're actually selling the heat, using the heat when the computing is happening. So they are reusing and making use of the resource heat. And this is an extremely interesting solution that really can drive the green transition when we need more and more computing power. So with me, I have the founder, CEO and CTO, Lars Wallin and Tomas Melin. And if we start with you, Lars, tell the audience who you are very, very shortly.
Yeah, Lars Wallin. I've been CEO for last 20 years and driven different IT projects.
And with you, you have your Chief Technology Officer.
Tomas Melin. I'm a PhD in aircraft design and I'm an expert in systems engineering.
How did you end up here?
We were standing in a data center, and realizing it's really, really hot in here. And suddenly the penny dropped and said, well, let's use computers as the source for heat. And from there, it's been developing through various prototypes and patents.
So just to explain this for the viewers, you're producing heat with electricity, but you're not using it. When you produce heat, you're also computing and selling that computer power.
Correct.
So this means that you get two revenue streams. You get the revenue stream by the heat that has a value if you want to heat a building, but you also get a revenue stream to sell the computer power.
Correct.
It seems like a no-brainer. Why are you, I mean, are you alone in doing this, or is it many other competitors out there?
There various people do different parts of what we do, but I think we're the only one that have a distributed data center concept that delivers heat locally and compute power globally.
And why are you alone in this?
I don't know.
But you have a patent as well.
Yes,
so that's maybe one of the reasons. Can you tell us a little bit about this patent that you now have?
Sure. The traditional way of doing supercomputing is that you have large monolithic data centers with huge compute capacity in them. And traditionally, it's been regarded that the heat produced is a waste product, is something that you need to get rid of. So usually it consumes more power with the air conditioning units in them. It also consumes water. Not such a big problem in Sweden, but in places where fresh water is a more scarce resource, that's another problem. Now, what we do, we flip the script entirely upside down. So our main mission, our main goal is to produce the heat where it's needed. And then we put the compute units where the heat is needed. Because the compute capacity, that can be distributed wherever in the world. So that's essentially the core of our patent, the system that allows for this massively scaled distributed data center.
And what's the kind of, I mean, the positive effect of this is quite obvious, but what's the downside? Because, you know, big tech companies, they usually want to build those big data centers in a centralized piece. You're doing it decentralized and have small units in a lot of different buildings. What's the pros and what's the cons doing it your way?
Well, I can do some of the cons, and you can take the pros then. Well, of course, since we have a distributed solution, the cost of installing infrastructure will be higher. We will have to have technicians on a global scale being able to travel quite a lot of distances to do the installations. On the other hand, we are not dependent on huge permits for the installation sites. We don't need to clear 100 acres of forest to build a computing center. We use existing facilities for it. Now, that being said, a con with that, of course, is that our units need to fit within the existing infrastructure. And that will be a challenge in some instances and will require on-site engineering to make it work.
So you need more people to run this?
Yeah, and I guess the pros are pretty obvious. The way that we can manage the workload across many different installations makes us highly efficient. We also don't have any heat losses because we have the computers where the heat is needed, whilst you can send electricity long distances with almost no losses. So that makes the distributed system more effective in terms of how you use the energy and reuse the energy. That's the biggest benefit we have.
And we talked a little bit before, so we actually cheated. I learned so much around this already. One thing I think is really interesting as well is that it's not only reusing the heat and making a value out of it. It's also a way where you can be much more adaptive. So when you have a high energy price, you produce more heat, you produce more computing. When the energy price are high, you you can use the heat you produced before because you saved it, and you don't need to produce computing power. You can produce computing power somewhere else in the world where you have a lower energy price. So this must be a big solution to actually help the grid as well, right?
Yeah, both the grid and I guess the tricky part in that equation is how we manage workloads and how do we move them from one place on the planet to another place on the planet, depending on the energy price. We can also help the grid companies to stabilize frequency and voltage by turning off computing in certain area of the country where maybe they have problems with overloading the grid. Or we can consume more power when there is an overflow of power. Typically, wind power is an example.
Or when the sun is shining, and I mean, I produce solar power in my own home, and sometimes no one can use it because it's so much sun.
Yeah, and of course you can store energy in either in the battery or you can store it in a heat in a water-based
but this
energy.
is very interesting because my background before I started We Don't Have Time is I was working in the finance industry, and one of the most profitable way to make money in finance is when you find one market that you can connect with another market and you can do something called arbitrage. If I understand your solution correctly, you can make money out of low energy price by turning energy into computing power.
Yes.
Because the world is connected, we can transfer that globally.
Correct.
So that means that you're basically connecting the electricity grid that are local grids to the global internet. I mean, this is very fascinating. What's your stage? The kind of where are you in the process? Do you have? Are you looking for investors? Do you have clients? Is this on the drawing board, or are you going like what stages are your company?
Right. We have gone through the idea, the patent process where you don't want to go and market too heavily, and we're now in our prototype phase, which means that we can have our 4 products lines tested and make sure that they work. And also we will test our software systems, and we are looking for a new round of finance to basically go to market.
So you're looking for investors?
Yeah.
But do you have already clients on board that wants to install your application?
We have a lot of interest, but we need to finish our internal prototype process before we go out and install them into the market.
So if you're an investor out there, here is something that is, at least I think, is very interesting because the world really needs this. We need a solution for computing power, and we also need a solution to transfer where the electricity are cheap to where it's needed the most. And you can do it in the form of computing power instead of electrons. I wish you a lot of success. I'm also very pleased that you told me that this is your first public media appearance because you haven't wanted to tell the world about this solution until the patent was secured. So I'm proud of that because I think the world will hear a lot about Boncalor in the future. And I think we have some subtitles where you can find out more. Boncalor.com.se.
Boncalor.com.
So go there and make the world greener, a better place, and a cheaper and more profitable place to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're speaking to Matt Barga. He's president of Life Science Solutions at Trane Technologies. And Matt, thank you very much for joining us. So Matt, we're here in New York City, a city that's already feeling, in many ways, the strain of rising heat. How do these prolonged heat events in urban areas, like this, say, in New York City, how do they impact hospitals and also the medicines that the hospitals rely upon?
Thank you for your time today, Nick. prolonged heat events have a dramatic impact on hospitals. First, they have a dramatic influx of patients who have conditions that are aggravated by the extreme heat. Staffing may impact their ability to staff and fully run the hospital. But most importantly, the facilities themselves and the storage of critical medications really come under strain under prolonged heat events. You know, a lot of them require precision temperature control for safety, stability, and efficacy, and the strain that's put on the facilities and the grid can potentially compromise those materials. And so our life sciences business at Trane Technologies, we're really focused on partnering with hospitals to build innovative solutions that provide sustainability and redundancy so that they can maintain those critical materials and maintain patient care throughout prolonged heat events.
And obviously trying to do that in a way that's also sustainable, good for the climate, or not bad for the climate, this kind of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So why is cooling so critical for medicines and vaccines? Maybe people don't realize this. And what do extreme heat and power outages as well mean for this whole area?
If you think about the development of medicines, they've really first started as room-stable pill form type therapies, and you've seen more and more advancements that require refrigeration to maintain that stability, the efficacy, and the safety of those materials. More recently, you've seen advancements in biologics, cell and gene therapies. They even have more challenging temperature ranges, all the way down to cryogenic temperatures to maintain their ability to treat patients. And so the need for temperature control has only grown recently as these new therapies have come to market. So we partner with hospitals, and the pharmaceutical companies throughout the cold chain, whether it's manufacturing, distribution, storage. It's all really critically important to maintain those really tight temperature ranges so that the medicines, vaccines, bloods, plasmas, all those types of things remain available for them to serve their patients. And so we focus on deploying technologies, whether it's advanced refrigeration, monitoring, phase change material for resilience in the case of power outages, backup power solutions for the cold storage itself and the building to ensure that hospitals can continue to serve patients during whether it's extreme heat or loss of power due to the extreme heat and the strain on the grid.
And so how is Trane Technologies partnering through its life science solutions business to help make pharma more sustainable, I suppose, in the sense overall? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really a big unmet need for the pharmaceutical companies. Sustainability is really important to them. And it's an opportunity for us. Our life sciences business is a newer business, supporting these needs and growing needs for the challenging precision temperature control for these therapies and medicines, vaccines, where we're working with them around how do we find more energy efficient, more resilient type solutions throughout their cold chain. But that's just a small part of Trane Technologies, our life sciences business. The broader Trane Technologies, we partner with them and take more of a systems approach. How do we focus on their entire footprint, be it manufacturing, distribution, storage, to enable sustainable solutions throughout their entire operations? It's really it's critical to the mission of Trane Technologies, and we find it's a great opportunity to partner with pharmaceutical companies to help them achieve their sustainability objectives.
And of course, it's good business for hospitals as well, right? Because they need to become more efficient, because costs are rising often in many countries. And if you're more sustainable, maybe you have a lower footprint in terms of your energy bills and all kinds of other stuff. So it's actually good for the society in general for what you're doing. Yeah. Absolutely,
it's a great opportunity. I think sometimes we talk about what are the broader impacts of the warming of the climate or sustained heat events, but specifically on the healthcare segment. It's a huge impact and a huge opportunity, and we're happy to be partnering with companies in healthcare and biopharma, pharmaceuticals to help them achieve their sustainability objectives, make the climate more friendly, and be able to continue to provide therapy to their patients.
Good, Matt. Well, thank you for being with us here on We Don't Have Time, and best of luck with your work. It sounds really fascinating, and yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
We're here at Climate Week New York at the Nest, and I'm excited to be speaking to Amber Malone, Vice President of Engineering and Technology for Thermo King Americas at Trane Technologies. So we're going to break all of that down. Amber, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Okay, so your founder, pioneered the first transport refrigeration unit back in 1938. That has been pretty useful, I would imagine, over the decades. With such a long history, how do you keep the innovation going?
Well, I would say that pioneering spirit that Frederick McKinley Jones, one of our founders, really instilled in a passion for innovation is really core to our culture. It's part of who we are. And so every day, the team is really excited about innovating and pushing the boundaries in terms of quality, reliability, efficiency, all to create a more sustainable cold chain.
Okay, so it's a core value for the company, given that pioneering spirit that you're describing. That's exciting to hear. That means there's innovation in the pipeline.
Absolutely. We're innovating every day. We've got some great digital solutions that are helping both us and our customers get more insights on how to improve the efficiency of their operations. And this will continue to evolve the cold chain. And as that uncovers new challenges and opportunities, we'll be there to address them. It's part of our DNA.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're excited to hear what comes down the pipeline. In Europe right now, you're leading the move to electric transport refrigeration. So even for companies that are not driven by sustainability goals, why does decarbonizing a fleet make good business sense?
Well, decarbonization, a lot of the solutions are really about increasing efficiency. And that usually comes with additional dollars to the bottom line. So whether it's improving fuel efficiency, you're burning less fuel, buying less fuel to operate the products, or using less expensive energy sources, like in Europe, electricity is much less expensive than diesel fuel. So all of those things help the economics of the operations. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind. Certainly the inefficiencies of the cold chain can present challenges as well in protecting the perishable items that we transport, the food, the life-saving medicines, the blood. So it's good for the communities as well to make sure we're not wasting any of those things and losing those things. So it's not all about sustainability and doing good things for the environment. It's about increasing efficiency, and the positive impacts on the environment are really fantastic to
benefits
put in
on
your,
top of that.
Exactly.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's good to be able to make a case across all of those different aspects, right? For the environment, for the business bottom line, ultimately for improved efficiency, as you were stating. And also, it seems like this is good for consumers that are looking to have reduced noise pollution. So cities everywhere are dealing with noise, traffic, poor air quality, but then the solutions that you're coming up with, like from Advancer, the Advancer platform, can help make neighborhoods more livable. It's also helping customers save money. So talk to us about those added benefits as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly the Advancer platform in Europe is a great way to have the same equivalent performance with fewer emissions, lower noise, all of those things, and makes it a nicer place to live for the community with the trucks moving back and forth. You know, in the United States or America's side of the pond, the sustainability solutions are moving at quite a different pace, and we're trying to meet our customers where they are and still provide interesting benefits in terms of efficiency. One of the products that we're really excited about is our TE series heat pump solution for electrified buses. So maintaining the comfort for the passengers there with a heat pump on electric buses is really valuable because they're about 2.5 times more efficient than the traditional resistance heating solutions, which all equates to more range for those electric buses and the ability to have those silent or nearly silent solutions on the roads.
I mean, it just sounds like plus, 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 right? More efficiency, lower costs, ultimately less noise pollution. So all of this is leading towards decarbonization anyway, right? So where does the industry stand right now in terms of decarbonization, and what are the opportunities that you see coming next?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that in different regions of the world, things are moving at a slightly different pace, and we're really focused in the Americas on creating new digital solutions to help us with better insights on improving the efficiency of the operations. We're focused on fuel efficiency of our products. All of these things are making the world a better place, and they're more sustainable solutions.
Nice. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on what Trane Technologies is up to. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about where you stand now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodwill Industries is a mission-driven business that helps people going through a hard time by providing job training, employment placement, and other services, largely funded by a network of thrift stores selling secondhand items at affordable prices. But Goodwill has also lately been lending a hand in the area of disaster relief, a topic right at the heart of the climate crisis. So, to tell us more about the fantastic work that's underway, we're here talking to Steve Preston, the CEO of Goodwill Industries. Steve, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Likewise.
Okay, so I think many of our viewers that are tuning in from around the world will have heard of Goodwill. It has significant brand recognition, but tell us more about it. So it's known first and foremost for helping people overcome barriers to employment. How did disaster relief become part of the mission, and how have you, at the helm, implemented that?
Yeah, so thank you for that. We've been doing workforce development for 125 years. We're also really an innovator in the textile circularity space, but both of those things are pretty much driven from the national level and as well as kind of coordinated locally. The disaster emphasis is almost by definition local because it is very episodic. Each situation is unique. The way it aligns with our mission is fundamentally local. People think of Goodwill as a big national organization, but it is a federation of local organizations. And when disaster strikes, it's absolutely critical for disaster relief agencies, local support services, and other providers to be able to coordinate effectively. And we do that very well because we have a significant presence in the communities that we serve. We have facilities, we have logistics, we have a lot of people, we have distribution centers, and we're able to harness those resources in ways that support other providers during a disaster.
And so, as disasters are increasing, which they are in frequency and intensity, what place Goodwill is in a position to really be useful in this space, to provide some sort of support? So talk to us about how it's positioned.
Yeah, so think about this. 83% of the population is within 10 miles of a Goodwill store. So we have an incredible footprint. Along with that footprint goes 140,000 employees, every one of them focused on a community mission. And in addition, we have warehouses, we have trucks, logistical networks. And the other thing we have, which is sort of an intangible, is we are incredibly resourceful with a lot of ingenuity on the ground. Because we're a nonprofit, because we're looking to solve problems and support people, we move where the need is, and we are really good at coordinating locally with other service providers.
Nice. Yeah, that flexibility is critical, especially
Absolutely.
when you have so many impacts that are occurring sometimes simultaneously. So talk to us about a recent example where Goodwill's work made a tangible difference in a community that was impacted by a disaster.
Well, we've seen a lot of disasters over the last several months, but I would point to just the horrific flooding on July 4th in Kerrville, Texas. And it was just devastating. So much loss of life, so much damage. I believe that actually hit on July 4th. By July 5th, we'd agreed with the Red Cross that we would be a collection center. Right after that, the next day, we began distributing goods to people based on those collections. We sent trailers to our stores near Kerrville to begin collecting those donations locally and redistributing them. We began doing what we called a roundup campaign in our store, where people could actually donate to disaster victims. And the thing I love about this is Goodwill locations from around the country began sending financial support to our San Antonio team to be able to deliver those services. Not long thereafter, we rented a large space in a mall with the Red Cross to build a much more substantial distribution center for clothing, for shoes, for household goods, for cleaning materials. Because, not surprisingly, in these cases, so many people have lost everything. And I think when all was said and done, we distributed 40,000 items to people locally, to 13,000 individuals. And we were really just an essential ingredient on so many levels embedded in that community to serve people.
Wow. So Goodwill gives so much support. It also needs support to be able to provide that.
It sure does.
Help. So there's a lot of challenges nonprofits face, usually around resources and getting the money, the attention, and just the basic supplies to be able to carry out its own good work. So As climate change intensifies, it sounds like Goodwill's work is going to increase. And so what are some of the challenges that nonprofits like Goodwill is facing?
Yeah.
And what is the need now for the nonprofit to really be able to do what its mission is?
Yeah, so, as a society, we sort of expect that the nonprofits are just going to show up.
Right.
And they do, because that's what we do. And we're very good at coordinating. But with more disasters, and also with more severe disasters, the resource requirements are significantly amplified. So in our world, it continues to help us if people are donating goods to the stores, that they're shopping in the stores, that they're keeping that ecosystem going, because those funds are the very funds that we invest in these human services. So that's very important. If a disaster strikes or throughout the year, financial donations are always helpful, because not everything is donated. Often significant materials need to be purchased as well. And I think it's just sort of the public recognition, especially at a time like this, that nonprofits need to be strong. We need strong leadership. We need strong financial foundations. The ability of most nonprofits that I work with to do remarkable things with very few resources is astounding. And a lot of times it's because people are working around the clock in these situations. But we have to pay attention to their health, and especially at the time of a disaster, we need to make sure to recognize that they need those donations, they need that support to be able to rise to the occasion.
Yeah. Let's give those who are doing the good work the reinforcement that they need, so they can take care of themselves, so they can take care of others.
Exactly, and the tools and the resources to deliver.
Exactly. Okay, I hear you. So does the audience tuning in. So how can individuals, through whether it's donations, volunteering, or advocacy, or all of the above, best support Goodwill's disaster relief efforts?
Yeah. First of all, I would ask people to learn a little bit about what Goodwill does in their community, because I think it just connects them to who we are locally, so that you know that when you're donating something, when you're buying something, you can see the human beings in the community that are being supported, whether they're people coming out of incarceration, people coming out of drug addiction programs, people moving into digital skills. There's so many ways that we serve communities, and it's an important part for people to attach to that, and I believe that very strongly. Secondly, keep those clothing donations coming, because that's what helps us do our work. On the advocacy side, this is a very important time for nonprofits, and we see a lot of people really questioning what nonprofits do. And I would ask people to look at all nonprofits with a discerning eye and understand really the value they provide.
Yeah.
And learn about them. And it's not just Goodwill. It's so many organizations and community networks that band together to do good work. And we can't do it all alone. Nobody can do it all alone. And one thing about the nonprofit network is we are very good at locking arms with each other and supporting each other in these really difficult situations.
Right. Nice. Well, thank you for being such a strong advocate for not just Goodwill, but for the nonprofit sector broadly. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time and joining us at Climate Week New York at the Nest. Thank you, Steve Preston.
Thank you very much.
Electrolux is a multinational home appliance manufacturer originally founded in Sweden, with many popular brands worldwide, including Frigidaire here in the United States of America. Electrolux Group has set multiple science-based sustainability targets and has been recognized for its sustainability performance by Time magazine, as well as the Carbon Disclosure Project. To tell us more about this, we're here with Tara Helms. She's Director of Sustainability in North America at the Electrolux Group. Hello.
Hello.
Tara, can you tell us a bit about what you're doing to earn all these accolades and applause for your climate action?
Sure. So I'm actually going to take you a bit backwards to 2018, where we were one of the first 100 companies to set a science-based target. Mm-hmm. And then through many years of execution and climate action, we actually found ourselves in the very fortunate position and well-executed position to achieve our first science-based target in 2022, actually 3 years ahead of plan. So then we had to come in and set a new, more ambitious target. that more new target really focuses on a reduction on a reduction. So we had already reduced a significant amount. Now we're targeting an 85% reduction of scope 1 and 2 and a 42% reduction of scope 3, which largely centers on our product use. So after years and years of execution, we landed there. Fast forward a little bit more to 2023, that's when their new target was set. And then in 2024, because we've still continued moving forward, we're really looking at what we saw was a 36% reduction of that 85% goal and a 31% reduction of that 42% goal. So we keep moving forward, and really, honestly, what it stems down to is creation and development of energy efficient products. It really centers on our execution of a full transition from high global warming potential refrigerants to low global warming potential refrigerants, and then really focusing on circularity as a new business vision and the way forward.
And let me ask a side question on that, because I mean, this target was set by the company headquarters in Sweden, yeah? Because for a while, science-based targets were not quite as visible among companies in the USA.
Correct.
But do other companies notice what you're doing? Do you get that feeling they see it, they hear it, they understand it? Because you could be quite a catalyst in this continent.
Yes, I think that they do. And honestly, the more that we can embed those targets into our everyday practices is where we actually see the movement happen. And I think that's what was so fortunate for us to be an early mover in this space, is not only did we act upon the target setting process, but then we moved it into the organization and we incentivized it so that everybody was aligned around a clear goal and had in mind what we needed to do to actually create a reduction pathway.
Right. Interesting. So at the Electrolux Group, you sell your products directly to individual consumers. What are the challenges and opportunities in promoting more sustainable behavior? And what does it look like?
It's a really great question. So our scope 3 product use is our biggest bucket of our carbon footprint. It's 85% of our total global emissions. It's massive. So when we look at consumer behavior, that's right at the center of what we're trying to reduce, which is product use in the home. And so maybe an example of a refrigerator, right, where it's plugged in 24/7, 365 days a year for, let's say, 10 to 15 years. So it's always on and continuously drawing energy upon the grid. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we optimize the energy efficiency of that appliance from the outset and encourage people to buy. So it could be as simple as buy the more sustainable option, the one that actually saves you money and silently reduces emissions in your home without you even noticing. Or it could be more sophisticated. For instance, we have washing machines, right, that default to cold water wash. And so we don't heat the water because we are so proud of our performance of our products. We have a third pump in a lot of our systems that are able to achieve a spring technology that distributes the detergent on the clothes before it washes, and we get that performance factor of a washing machine without having to heat the water. So it could be as simple as that, where it defaults to cold water wash or encourages somebody to use a more sustainable cycle.
So on that one, that's partly your technology.
Correct.
It's maybe helping people to change their behavior. And the other one is more encouraging people to think about behavior change, if I can put it that way, yeah?
Exactly.
And can you actually badly use a refrigerator, for example? I mean, in other words, I sometimes think I don't clean mine enough. And I mean, are there things you can do, like, to keep them clean and tidy so that they operate at the best possible, performance?
Performance, absolutely. So some of it, of course, relies upon who's using it, and of course, try to keep the doors as closed as much as possible. That's the big one, so the cold doesn't escape, and then you have to re-cool once it goes in. But temperature settings can be optimized, and depending on where you live and the conditions are, there's certain temperature thresholds that you should be setting at. For instance, in my home, it's at 39 degrees. It maintains the best freshness of food for longer. There's other things, for instance, like crisper technology. So that's the drawer where you put in fruits and vegetables. We have technology that has an ethylene absorption filter. And so the produce naturally emits this ethylene, which causes it to shrivel. And so that ethylene absorb filter helps pull that out. And as long as you're storing your vegetables properly, you will get longer life out of those. So for instance, avocados don't belong in that drawer. They belong on the counter.
Yes.
And so because of the ethylene generation of gas and its ripening schedule. So there are certain foods and certain things that you could be doing differently with your refrigerator.
Okay, I now feel a bit guilty. There's a lot more I need to learn about refrigeration systems, yeah. One of the biggest challenges that you're tackling right now is the increasing circularity of your company.
Yes.
And obviously circularity has been talked about for a long time, but it seems to be gaining more traction, I think, now. And that is increasing the rate at which the materials in your products are reused. So creating a loop, effectively. You recently announced a new goal stating that 35% of the steel and plastic used in your products should be recycled by 2030. Can you tell us more about this goal and why it's important to Electrolux?
Of course. So you're absolutely right. Circularity is becoming more predominant. And when we go back to our total footprint, that 85% of product use is massive. But what's second in line is materials. So our material footprint that we use, the steel and the plastics used to make our products, is the second largest bucket. So it is something that we clearly need to prioritize and pay attention to. That new target is more all-encompassing. So we were already working on circularity from that standpoint, but now taking into account the steel, combining it with the plastics, we're essentially doubling the weight of all the recycled materials that we are including in our target. So it's more holistic and more encompassing, and then it gets our focus on the right attention to the right materials and the right value chains, which are completely different between plastics and steel. So absolutely. And I think right there, also going back to the consumer behavior piece, is when we can incorporate recycled materials, it also sparks interest from the consumer base. So in Europe, for example, we were the first ones to launch a refrigerator with a recycled plastic inner liner. It was 70% recycled plastic. Now, the liner is simply, when you open the refrigerator doors, think about it as the inner plastic shell that you see on the back. That's the liner. Now, what was interesting was both before the launch and after the launch, we measured what consumers thought about the recycled plastic, because it's not always perfect in appearance. There's some imperfections, slightly off color maybe, and they actually viewed it as more premium. So here we are launching our very first product with that in directly the product, and we're getting a very, very positive reception. So our commitment there is that we need access to high quality materials to keep doing that, right? It can't just be the one refrigerator, and we're committed to bringing it more globally to more product lines and more platforms.
Okay, that's quite interesting as well. Is there anything else in the fridge that could be part of this in the future? We got the plastics, the steels. There's probably a bit of copper maybe? Or,
there is. So the electronic waste is clearly part of almost every large appliance today. And of course, as those become more connected and we have more electronics on board, there's clearly a whole host of other critical minerals that are involved. So yes, as that evolves and our appliances move forward, we pay attention to that too. We have to map that, and we know where we're headed with that connectivity pathway. And that brings benefits both to the person using the product, and of course on the back end, we are able to then look at the value chain and recover those materials in a different way, because e-waste is a different value chain than the plastics, than the steel.
Exactly. But it's all part of creating a sustainable, healthy, functioning planet, and also dealing with climate change.
Absolutely.
Looking at this finally, what do you need in terms of policy or other support to make these kinds of visions a reality? And that's an interesting question asking right now in North America. But what ideally can states, regional governments, and also national governments do to put this faster forward?
I absolutely. What we desire is legislation that actually demands recycled content in domestic appliances. And without that, we don't really have a significant enabler that can actually move the market. So in order to innovate, in order to increase that material supply chain, we would need something that helps move the market in a consistent way, in a harmonized way. Us alone, trying to do that one refrigerator at a time is progress forward, but we really need the industry to come with us. So we view legislation in that respect as an enabler, and can do something very, very positive for us all, where we could actually harmonize and then generate those materials back. So I think across the board, when we think about circularity, plastics have drawn a lot of attention. We don't get that same type of attention in home appliances for plastics because it flows through a different system. But ultimately, if there was a requirement that demanded recycled content from the outset, all of us would be more focused on that and recovering, of course, the value in the end, which is what makes it possible for everybody and tapping into the value.
Yeah. So I suppose there could also be an industry-wide alliance of household goods manufacturers say, this is something we want to do through a trade association or something like that, and push it up higher and higher to the legislators. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, very interesting. I'm now going to look at my fridge in a different way, I must say, and but I'm not sure mine's fancy enough to be able to track the ethylene, but maybe I should think about that. But I also think as a single man in a house in Berlin that I probably need to at least clean it a bit more as well. So I'm now trying to think of different love and tender love and care towards my refrigerator. But thank you very much, Tara. Very interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The Anthropocene Institute is an organization comprised of scientists, engineers, thought leaders, and others working towards the laudable goal of making Earth abundant and sustainable for all generations to come. And one of their primary focuses is on promoting nuclear energy. And here to tell us why, we have Guido Núñez-Mujica. Do it for me.
You're almost there.
I'm almost there, am I? Please pronounce
Guido Núñez-Mujica.
Thank you so much indeed. And so Guido, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being with us. Tell us, many developing countries, they face big challenges accessing sustainable electricity. And they need that to grow their economies and lift their people out of poverty without, of course, adding to the threat of climate change. So do you think nuclear power has a role to play for these countries, and what would it take to make it a real option?
Thank you so much for having me. And the answer is yes, very much. Personally, I am an immigrant from Venezuela, and I grew up in poverty. So I understand from a personal point of view what is energy insecurity, something that a lot of people in the West have no direct experience of. And the opportunities that the developed countries have enjoyed are now close to poor countries because they are not allowed by development institutions like the World Bank to have funds for fossil fuel projects. And solar and wind are necessary, but they are not enough for heavy industrialization. And right now there's a big issue in Africa with critical minerals. The Africans are very concerned that they have all these minerals and they export the ores that really are not worth that much, where the money is in the manufactured products. But to have enough energy for this kind of heavy industry, you need steady electricity. You cannot be running plants on and off depending on weather, and you cannot have a lot of storage. So the only energy-dense sources that you have that are not fossil, it's hydro, geo, or nuclear. And hydro and geo are restricted because of geography. So I think, as someone from the global south, I can tell you that access to electricity is more than having light bulbs at your home. That's necessary. But in order to create prosperity and to create jobs that will help people to raise their children to better living standards, you need a lot more electricity than we currently have. And the answer, nuclear is part of the answer. It's not the answer. This is a problem too complex to have one answer, a answer, but it has to be part of the solution.
So, I mean, personally, I lived in Africa for 13 years. I lived in Kenya. And
wonderful
Kenya's
geothermal.
Great, yeah. And because that's where the headquarters are of the UN Environment Program. So I worked for UNEP in Nairobi. And Kenya's gone through a very interesting time because they have geothermal, and the UN in fact helped them develop the geothermal, and they've also got the biggest wind farm in sub-Saharan Africa in a place called Turkana. So they now have a surplus of green energy, which they're using now to electrify the bus system. I suppose what I'm trying to say is it could be that there are different places where different things work, you know what I mean?
It all depends on what people are trying to do.
Exactly.
If you're going for a service industry, maybe you don't need that much. But if you're a country that has lots of ore and want to explore the opportunities to turn that ore into manufactured products and goods that they can sell and make a lot more income than just selling the ore, you will need something that's energy dense.
So where do you feel nuclear is right now in the discussion? I feel that the nuclear industry feels a little bit more confident maybe right now than it did maybe some years ago, that they are being taken seriously again. The UK's just announced a new nuclear plant and so on. Do you feel that there is more attention being paid to nuclear by the policymakers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As you said, now we're being taken seriously again, and conversations that only even 2 years ago, which is nothing, would have been completely impossible, or people look at you like you're crazy, now are possible. Now people are more open-minded, paying more attention. And even in the Global South, this is the case. I was just in Addis Ababa 2 weeks ago for
the African Union.
For the African Climate Summit.
Yeah.
And while I was there, Ethiopia announced a plan to develop a nuclear power plant. And I was in Vienna last week for the IAEA General Conference. And there were multiple African countries extremely interested into this. But the problem now is not maybe public perception. It's still part of a problem, but it's not the most serious. The problem now is this, sadly, is very expensive technology for the time being. It will get cheaper in the future, but we don't have time. So we need to come up with creative solutions and with new policies that acknowledge that the landscape has changed.
How do you deal with what is often said about nuclear, that it's quite expensive and that it sometimes takes a long time for the planning, and then sometimes the construction goes over the planned time, or the cost goes up, or is it possible to build nuclear that's kind of like on time, on price? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. This is not a rhetorical question. This is not a theoretical exercise. If you look at what France did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they decarbonized their country pretty much in 15 years, at least the electricity part. And when you do something over and over and over, you get better at it. The problem is that we decided that we didn't want nuclear. It was, for many reasons, it was not desired, was not wanted, and we stopped investing in it. So when you stop doing something, decades, and the people who were working at it retires, you need to train a new generation. You need to start from scratch. So it can be done. It requires a lot of investment, but once you get it done, now we know that a nuclear power plant can last 80 years. So the main problem is expensive, yes, but it's an 80-year investment that you're making. We're not even talking about investing in the future of our children. We're talking about investing in the future of the children of our children. So, yes, the initial cost is expensive, but also you need to factor that by shutting down coal power plants, you're preventing a lot of death and illness related to atmospheric pollution. And this is not factored in the current economic models.
Right.
So part of what we do at Anthropocene Institute is we're trying to quantify the positive externalities to have an analysis that's more holistic.
Got you. And where do you think it's going to go in the next couple of months? I mean, we have the UN Climate Conference coming up in Belém in Brazil in it's just over a month and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
Will nuclear be on the discussion, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. A new idea that has come, and we have pioneered at Anthropocene, is that there needs to be a level play field for all low-carbon electricity sources. Currently, solar and wind and I think Geo
geothermal, yeah,
have access to income from carbon credits, carbon trading programs. Nuclear is not allowed. And we have done economic analysis that show that if you factor this in, if you could get this sort of income for a large nuclear power plant like the one they're building in Bangladesh, you might be able to make $1 billion or more of dollars per year on additional income from carbon credits if you shut down the equivalent amount of coal generation.
Right.
Because we're talking about 15 million tons per year that you're avoiding. So when you add this, it changes the economics of the projects. And I know that people are getting interested in this idea, and as it will be discussed, at least informally, at this COP.
Okay, okay. Interesting. I think we're probably coming to the end of our 10 minutes, but it's been very nice to talk to you. And you're clearly optimistic that nuclear is now being considered seriously by both rich and poorer countries as a possible way of dealing with this challenge, and that seems to be a shift in perception. Yeah,
I will say I'm optimistic. Period.
Yeah,
because I think that the current a lot. I understand we have a crisis. It's urgent that we act on it, but sometimes when a crisis is framed in such dire terms that it seems it leaves no exit, people get desperate, they get depressed. You have all this issue with teenagers now having this climate anxiety. And I think that nuclear offers us a way to be optimistic about the future, to have a future where we can have a good quality of life, where we don't have to have a terrible life to make all these sacrifices for the sake of the environment, but we can have energy abundance that doesn't generate CO2 and that can actually create a better world for people, can give them jobs that are not going to be outsourced. You cannot outsource. So there are many, many reasons why I believe that energy abundance will finally be the way in which the Global South is going to improve its quality of life. Because we need to remember that pretty much all of the demographic growth this century is going to be in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia.
Absolutely. Well, I'm optimistic too, and for all kinds of reasons. So we share something in common there. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much indeed.
Wildflower is a company that's been involved in a wide range of projects all over New York City, from a vertical film studio to e-commerce distribution sites. But today, we're here with Wildflower managing partner, Adam Gordon, to talk about a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, and that is electric vehicle charging. So you're very interested in this because this is what we are going to delve into. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Well, we are at the Nest Climate Campus. It's Climate Week New York, so it's not a surprise that we've got EVs and electrification more broadly on our minds. Tell me and our audience what led you to decide to get involved in building out EV charging infrastructure in New York City.
It was really two things. We're Amazon's most active e-commerce developer in New York City. And in my first meeting with Amazon, I had been sitting on the board at Scripps Institution of Oceanography for years, working on their 100-year campus master plan. So I asked Amazon one question: how do we keep you happy for 40 years instead of 10 years?
Nice.
And they said EV charging. The need isn't here yet, but when our Rivian delivery vans come to site, we need to power them up. So that kind of inspired the journey.
Okay, and so that was very practical. And obviously, as you've gotten into it, you've learned a lot more about electrification on the way. And a lot of our viewers might have some misperceptions that we could help elucidate given your journey. So help clarify. A lot of people think EVs really only work for people in suburbs where they have the private driveways and the private charging stations. That's not true for New Yorkers, right? We're talking about New York City here. So tell us about what are some of the misperceptions around EVs in New York City, and what are the challenges that EV charging faces in this sort of dense urban environment? How is Wildflower addressing these?
Sure. Well, first, it's helpful to understand how New York City is different. 80% of us are renters. Many fewer live in private homes, and fewer still have garages. So all electric vehicle charging has to happen in public domain. We don't have grocery store parking lots, drugstore parking lots, post offices. And so private sector charging has to step in to work in areas where public sector charging typically operates. So we don't have Walmarts here. And so once you realize that, and once you realize we want to power the clean energy transition through electric vehicle fast charging, then we have to think about where we need to step in. Originally, electric vehicles were expensive luxury products like Teslas, but on the used market now they're some of the most affordable options. And so people across a very wide demographic range are using electric vehicles. Our fast charging serves the airports, they serve commuters, they serve anybody who needs fast charging solutions in New York City.
Yeah, that's exciting because the demand and the need is just going to increase, right? And so as the technology improves, being able to scale it and really make it as efficient as possible and accessible as possible, that's really what we're going to be looking out for. And it needs to happen in a city like New York because New York has one of the most ambitious climate goals in all of the United States, and transportation is the largest source of emissions in the country. So you're at a key intersection here. So tell us how Wildflower's work contributes to New York's bigger carbon reduction emissions, and tell us about the new project at JFK.
Sure. So Wildflower is likely the most active electric vehicle supercharging developer in New York City, full stop. We're building the largest in the city at JFK Airport. We're building 2 at LaGuardia. We're on our 3rd at Hunts Point, which is where all our food comes in. We had one in Maspeth, which we sold to Tesla. So we're building in all the key intersection points, ringing Manhattan, near the airports, and also in all the primarily active logistics location. So really the way I think about us is we're doing our part. It's becoming increasingly difficult to get interconnection from our local utility. In our case, it's called Con Edison. And so we think that over time, having this infrastructure is going to become more and more vital and difficult to achieve. We don't know what charging is going to look like in the future, meaning is it going to be hover, is it going to be swap, is it going to be plug-in? But we do know that large amounts of power are going to need to facilitate this transition, both for consumer and for fleet vehicles.
Right. Oh, super fascinating. Okay, so we're going to watch the space closely. And so electrification is not just about reducing carbon emissions, right? So we were just talking earlier before this interview about how there's other benefits associated with it. And if certain players want to lead with those benefits, let them. Why not? Ultimately, the end goal is to move towards electrification. So what are other benefits you see stemming from widespread EV adoption?
Well, for example, in Hunts Point, one of the areas we work has some of the highest cancer and childhood asthma rates in New York City. By reducing emissions, we're going to create a healthier future for children there. We're also seeing significant cost reductions. People using electric vehicles, they have fewer parts, they're simpler to operate, they're more reliable. And as we move towards autonomous vehicles, we're going to see electric vehicles being 100% of that cohort.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of benefits. So you would think that the regulations that to support accelerated electrification in New York City would be easy. Has regulation ever been easy or smooth? But talk to us a little bit about what is the regulatory challenges that is being faced in New York City. So what's happening here in particular, and what barriers need to be reduced so that we could see an acceleration to electrification citywide?
We're pioneers, and so we're working closely with Con Edison, with Economic Development Commission, with the Department of Buildings, with the Fire Department, to show them that electric vehicle charging stations are not only vital, but they're also safe. And so as pioneers, it's more challenging for us, but our hope is that it's going to be easier over time for other entrants to come into the marketplace. But New York at certain levels has always been a mess. I was born here, and as a 4th generation New Yorker, I know, but that's not a reason not to do the work.
Okay, very succinct and spoken like a true New Yorker. I'm from New Jersey, so I can't say I'm a New Yorker, but I'm like adjacent. I'm New York adjacent.
You're close by, yeah.
I've spent enough time in New York City to learn that it's complicated, but ultimately we do the right thing. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Final question for you. We were talking about this before we went on with this interview. Is the name of the company is special. So tell our audience where it came from and what it means.
It came from a Tom Petty song of the same name, Wildflower, but we're a thing of beauty that pops up sometimes where you least expect us.
And what is the location Astoria that we will get a chance to tour in the near future?
Oh yes, I'd welcome that. So we opened Wildflower Studio just under a year ago, designed by Bjarke Engels with our partner Robert De Niro, and currently filming productions there. It's the world's first vertical film studio and the most sustainable.
Excellent. Okay, well maybe we don't have time production. We'll be coming live from that studio at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate your time, Adam.
Thank you.
If you focus mostly on climate and energy politics, you might not realize that there is a clean energy boom happening right now in the United States, solar. Solar will account for more than half of new capacity in the country this year alone. To tell us more about what's going on with solar, I'm here with Abby Hopper, CEO of the Solar Energy Industries Association that we fondly refer to as SEIA. Abby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so we need to tell this audience about RE+. So less than 2 weeks ago, you hosted this. It's the largest clean energy event in North America. So tell us about the conference and what it told you about where solar and the broader clean energy sector are headed next.
Yeah. So it was, you're right, 2 weeks ago, it was in Las Vegas, and honestly, we were a little unsure, right? What would be the vibe on the show floor, how people would be feeling, kind of what the atmosphere would be. And I can report back that it was one of primarily optimism.
Nice.
Yeah, companies they're building, they're growing. Every person I met, I said, how are you? How's the business?
Right.
Right? And mostly it was like, I'm okay, my business is doing great. There were some notable exceptions. The residential sector in the United States is particularly hard hit, but the commercial sector, the community sector, and certainly the utility scale sector is growing like crazy, despite all of the headwinds we're facing. So I left RE Plus energized and like, all right, let's go do this.
Wow, that's really great to hear.
It
to get the
was.
pulse of what's happening on the ground. So, okay, so there's some notable hits, but generally speaking, it sounds like the writing's on the wall, and commercially, we're moving in the right direction towards clean energy.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think what we're seeing is this sort of push, right? The pull of demand saying we need electrons, we need them now, and solar and storage, you can provide them. And then we have like the impact of policy, which is trying to slow it down. I'm a big believer that the market will win out, right? The demand will win out. And I think that's what we're seeing is that companies are finding that customers are still choosing to go solar. And when I say customers, it's not just the homeowners, like the residential sector is a small part.
Sure.
It's about 20% of the industry in the United States. So it's businesses, it's utilities, it's corporates, right? They're all continuing to go solar because it makes economic sense.
It makes economic sense, and it's what's happening in the United States and around the world. So
Yes.
regardless of what's happening in this particular moment of time in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
it seems like this is the trend, right? So
Yeah.
what are the drivers of this trend? What's the drivers for all of this growth from your perspective?
So right after, like 4 days after President Trump was elected this time is when I left for Baku to go to COP.
Sure.
And it was a really grounding experience, honestly, because a lot of us in the U.S. were feeling like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to our climate goals? What's going to happen to this clean energy transition? And it was a great reminder that the rest of the world is not waiting for us, right? And that's really good as Americans to be reminded that we're not actually the center of the universe. So that was good. But it is happening worldwide. And certainly every estimate you see solar and storage growing. And it's happening because of economics, right? It is the cheapest way to put electricity on the grid in almost every market. It's happening because the technology is getting better with storage. It's happening because we're so scalable, right? Like you can't put an offshore wind turbine on your farm, right? But you certainly could put a right-sized like solar application and you can fuel your pumps, or you could put it on your home and fuel your lights, or you could literally put it outside of a city and fuel a big chunk of the city. So that ability to scale is pretty unique among the clean technologies. And I think that's why it's being so rapidly adopted all across the world.
I've heard, so that sounds excellent, and I see, you can see it. You can see how it's actually being deployed. But there's some challenges to expanding deployment too, and some would say that it's actually the infrastructure of solar that is that's also a challenge. How do you address that? How do we solve that if that is a challenge?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I feel like that's a challenge that's more manufactured than real. Certainly in the political rhetoric, there's a lot of claims that solar takes up too much land, or it's taking prime farmland, or that it's if we put too much solar down, then we're not going to be able to have adequate food supply. None of that is true, right? There's great charts that say there's more land being used, like in the United States, for golf courses than for solar farms.
Right. Fact checking in real time.
Fact checking in real time. And I think one of the most interesting and innovative parts of solar deployment is agrivoltaics, and not having to have an either or conversation, but an and conversation. We can put solar on and continue to farm and continue to grow crops and continue to use this land in a way that's really productive to the community. And so I think, what we're finding is that communities, when they have a voice in sort of what their land use is, they choose solar for all the reasons we've talked about, but they also probably choose, and often choose, that it stays agricultural. So we're making a lot of progress on that front.
So it's not a this or that situation, and that's the misperception that we want to bust. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we know that innovation is moving fast, from storage to grid modernization. So what technologies, what business models do you think will have the biggest impact on solar's future?
Yeah. Storage, right? It is for a variety of reasons. One is just because of the attributes of storage and what it, I have a friend that calls it the special sauce of the grid. It could do a whole bunch of different things. It makes everything better. But also in the United States, the way in which it's been treated under our tax code, it avoided a lot of the implications of the solar tax credits. But also because that is an area where the innovation is happening so quickly. I am a lawyer, not a engineer or battery storage expert right on the technical side, but I know enough to know that it's happening quickly. The other business model, and so both the technology is changing, but also offering it as the primary product. So rather than come to you and say, hi, would you like to have solar on your home? And by the way, I can put a battery. Instead, I think you're going to see, hi, would you like batteries in your home? And also I can add some solar while I'm there, which is a very different conversation.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's happening a lot is the commercial sector. So all of those, all those big rooftops you see when you're flying, wherever you're flying, and they are these huge untapped resources.
Right.
Partly they're untapped because it's sort of each contract is rather unique, right? And every customer wants something a little different. So there's a lot of innovation in terms of aggregating demand and aggregating from the customer so that they can have a smoother contracting process and take out a lot of the risk, which always adds price.
Sure. Well, you are at such a unique vantage point to be able to see who's operating and doing what things. So talk to us about where the collaboration is really happening. Where is the creativity coming from? Where do you see the greatest opportunities emerging when we're talking about, reducing regulatory barriers and then getting communities to overcome some of the not as big of an issue with solar, but the whole idea of overcoming some of the cost barriers, or I don't want this to be affecting my particular backyard or my particular infrastructure.
Right.
So how do we overcome some of those regulatory barriers, and how do we do this in a way that's truly nonpartisan?
Oh gosh, if I had the answer to that, right? It is the right question, right? It's the right question because feels like the biggest barrier is that energy, and clean energy in particular, has been so politicized that it's hard to just have the question about the technology or even just the question about the cost. I honestly think that the thing that will bring people together and has brought a lot of people together is the need for energy, right? There is every country has their own self-interest, appropriately so, in leading their own technological advancements, right, and doing development and research in their own countries. And for so much of that, we need energy. Like energy is the number one ingredient in that sauce.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that brings together different groups of people. So it brings together both the companies that want that and realize there's a need for it. It brings together communities that want to bring that tax base into their community. It brings together the economic development folks. And I think, one of the voices that's important to hear is from sort of the traditional environmental community, right? Because we know that the US has a rising electricity demand, and there's only so many ways we have to meet it. And making sure that we meet it with a clean energy grid as opposed to a dirty energy grid is really critical.
Oh, you're speaking our language. I mean, that's the whole point of We Don't Have Time, is we need to accelerate to clean energy, because we deserve to see the lights turn on when we flip that switch. But what is actually behind that? And to what extent is it doing us more harm than good, right? So solar is really a critical component to the energy mix. And the promises of solar are really exciting. And it really does empower across the private-public divide. It really empowers across the residential, commercial, infrastructure. So whether you're a homeowner, whether you're a business, or whether you are making decisions for the community, the goal is ultimately to have the right to electricity when you flip the switch, but to also be energy independent. So how do you think about how solar is really reshaping the way people think about energy, power, resiliency, especially in a world that's becoming increasingly unstable in a lot of ways, right? So how do you think about it?
So it's interesting. I have seen this happen over and over again, where people make a decision to put solar on their homes and then become so much more aware of their own energy use, right? Time and again, I'll be in a place and someone will bring out their phone and show me their app to show me how much energy they're producing that day, right? And it creates a very personal relationship with your energy source, which is not something we have right now, right? And so if you sort of take that and take it to scale and translate it into communities, people have a different relationship with their energy source. And then you sort of add on to that this idea that you are in charge of it, right? You can decide what you're going to put on how your house is going to be fueled, how your business is going to be fueled. When you think about adding batteries so that when these ever increasing weather events happen, you are not adversely impacted by them, right? Your family won't be, your community, you can be like a haven for your community. I mean, it changes this idea that we are passive sort of recipients of this magic electrons that come through the grid, and instead really empowers people, the pun was not intended, empowers people to take control of their own energy. But there is something about the fact that you can, touch it, feel it. It's not hundreds of miles away. It's really literally right in your community that changes the way people think about it.
It totally makes sense. Behavioral science underlines what you just said, right? It's making the invisible visible. It's making the abstract more tangible, and it's holding yourself, your community, more accountable as to where the source of your energy is coming from. Because people don't think about it, right?
No,
you don't think about, and you can't see the sources of energy. You can't see gas. You can't see nuclear, but to be able to touch and feel a solar power panel can go a really long way and make people more accountable, and ultimately have them do right by community and for planet.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important that schools, right, lots of schools have solar on their roofs, or universities have solar on the roofs, or wastewater treatment plants in a town. They choose to go solar because it makes the most economic sense. And where my kids go to the pediatrician, you look out the window and the building below has all solar on its roof. And it is just it raises people's awareness to think, oh, that is what's happening in my community. Maybe I need to look into this a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a way to bring people into the conversation around energy more broadly too. So
and make it personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that's what works.
Yes.
That is the power of communication, storytelling, and ultimately behavioral change.
Right.
So we hope that those who are able to will make the move.
Yes.
If they can.
Yes, absolutely.
Any final words you would like to say to our audience regarding the future of solar?
Yeah, I mean, the future of this clean energy transition is bright. I think we are on the path that no one government agency or no one administration can stop us. It certainly can be a little bumpy along the way, but I am ultimately incredibly confident that we are going to continue on the path we're on and, provide clean air, clean water, and an equitable future for our families.
Nice. I love that. Well, it's hard to fight with the sun, right? You're
hard
going
to
to
fight with
lose
the
that
sun.
battle.
Every time.
Every time. Thank you, Abby. It's such a
Thank
pleasure
you.
always.
It's such a pleasure.
Appreciate it.